In this week's episode of Ushio and Tora, Ushio goes down to the bottom of the ocean in a wicked military-grade submarine, and Tora has a battle to the death with an old ally. There was absolutely no way that Ushio and Tora's trip to the bottom of the ocean was going to be that easy. They're going to run into one hell of a roadblock in this week's episode, and I'd say that the main roadblock is going to be Nagare Akiba, a character who has just suddenly out of nowhere decided to transform into a villain in the middle of the series. Originally claiming to be a follower of Hakumen no Mono, I personally believe after watching this episode that this is something that Akiba has wanted since the beginning, because we get to go a little bit more into his backstory in this week's episode, learning that apparently he is something of a genius and a winner at absolutely everything. Ever since he was a kid, he has excelled at just about everything from sports to work, to just being plain smart. And he's always had this thing where he sort of always held himself back. Basically, he's put restraint on himself for a number of reasons. One, he didn't want anything bad to happen to his family. He didn't want any of his skills to end up sort of biting him in the ass and everybody would end up attacking him and his family. But also because he never really ran into an opponent that he was able to really pull out his most powerful abilities on. That is until he met Tora. Ever since he met Tora in the first season of the show, you could definitely tell that it's sort of like had this big change on his personality, and it's sort of been like eating away at him on the inside, and the only way that he's going to be able to quell his bloodlust is by having this amazing battle with Tora. While all of this is going on, Ushio decides that he's going to hijack this sub in this really ridiculous way so that he can go down to the bottom of the ocean and they can stop this pillar from being destroyed and releasing the Hakumen no Mono. All of the stuff with Ushio this week is very standard. However, there is one very important scene, and that's the fact that Asako Nakamura has actually made her way to this big military base in the middle of the ocean, and that's because she got a little bit of help from the Hammer Institute, and she literally appears just out of nowhere towards the end of the episode, jumping out of a helicopter right into Ushio's arms. And even though she doesn't really fully remember who he is quite yet, she still has a lot of fuzzy memories of this guy, not to mention, she feels that something's just right about Ushio, basically. And Ushio reassures her that he is going to go to the bottom of the ocean and he is going to solve all of this. And you would expect this to be the final moment, between the two characters where they're going to embrace each other and reveal their love to each other. And in a way, they actually do. But they do it in this way where Asako is actually on the outside of the submarine, looking in through this porthole, so you can't hear what she's saying. But she clearly, confesses her love to Ushio in this episode. And Ushio also admits that he cares for her. But who cares about all that lovey-dovey stuff when you got this badass battle going on between Akiba and Tora, which honestly is one of the best fight scenes that I've seen from the entire series. It's also so ridiculous and over the top that it's kind of funny, because Akiba has these brand new abilities where his arms just get completely jacked up and massive. I'm not sure what the deal with this is, but it's great, because he ends up looking like a disproportionate One Piece character by the end of the episode, but he needs these powers if he's going to go toe-to-toe with Tora. And just to add a little bit more tension to this battle, Ushio tells Tora before their big fight that if you kill Akiba, I will never forgive you, and I'll also do something that will make you regret your actions. So of course, Tora has to hold back throughout the course of the entire battle. That is a little bit more until the end, when Akiba finally starts to reveal some really cool abilities from him, and this battle essentially is just them beating the ever-living shit out of each other, using all their abilities, with Akiba using his sealing techniques, and using his two stabs, which he now wields dual style, which he uses to beat Tora repeatedly, but Tora manages to stop him in his tracks when he uses his hair to literally stab right through his feet, until suddenly there's this one point where Tora actually loses both of his hands, and then he actually manages to stretch out his neck like a snake, where he bites down on Akiba's neck. This was a really crazy scene, and I didn't even know that Tora was capable of doing something like that. The dude was like Orochimaru from frickin' Naruto, and basically, this was the straw that broke the camel's back. This was the end of Akiba, who honestly, I think wanted to be defeated and I think he wanted to be killed. However, that scene at the end where Tora realizes that he is dead, you can really feel the conflict in Tora right there, and you can even see his voice cracks a little bit, almost as if his more human side is starting to come out. And they definitely wanted to cover up his tears because the wind started blowing, going past his face, and you couldn't see his full reaction. And then he just has this great exit where he explodes up into the sky, he flies past this window, which all falls down on top of Akiba at the very end, silencing the wind inside of his head. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Ushio and Tora? Such a simple episode, but a very satisfying one. I think my favorite thing about this episode were a lot of the cool artwork moments, especially from Akiba himself. Just like the exorcist hunter Hio, he's got some of the creepiest expressions that I have ever seen. The way they managed to contort his face always is really, really surprising. And I had no idea that his arms were going to beef up like that. It was really insane. He managed to punch Tora in the face a couple of times, but there was no way that Tora was going to lose this battle. He's just so much more infinitely powerful and resourceful, and even after having his arms ripped off, you know that he's just going to be able to put them back on. We've seen that multiple times in the series. Hell, that happened in their original battle, which, of course, this was a callback to that. But with all the stuff with Ushio, even though that was good, I think the Tora Akiba stuff is what really sold this episode right here. And it was definitely an entertaining episode because it flew right by. It only felt like 5 minutes had passed while actually watching this week's episode, and that's a good sign because it means it's going to suck the viewers right in. I do think it's a little cheesy, the stuff with Asako Nakamura just constantly walking down this rainy street and running conveniently into a hammer truck. I think that's just a little too convenient. But still, it was a nice scene and it had to happen eventually. I mean, they were going to confess their love. But really, that's all I have to say about this week's episode of Ushio and Tora. Lots of cool action, really great tender moment between Ushio and Nakamura, not to mention him stealing that sub was really funny because he had no plans to do that. But he actually caught the attention of this old guy who actually realized that Ushio had good intentions, and he actually pretended to be a hostage with him. And there were a lot of funny moments where he was telling Ushio to try and act all mean and pushy, and Ushio was just putting on the most ridiculous expressions. Not as crazy as Akiba's, mind you, but it was still really funny. That added to this episode, made this a very good one to watch. So, great episode of Ushio and Tora. Check it out, Ushio and Tora fans. You might see something you like. But if any of you did watch this week's episode, why don't you tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, follow us on social media, and make sure to check out all of that stuff in the description box below. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.